Right then people, it's nothing too major, it's just that I've not been on here for, it will be a fortnight in a couple of days, which is the longest that I've ever gone since I began this channel. And I've already told a couple of people, Edith knows, some of you will know Edith from being in the comment section, that I have got to a point again, which has happened once before, where I'm actually slowing down now at this. I know some of you don't mind me banging, the same drum that I've been banging for the last 2.5 years, but it gets a bit tedious, and especially when you get to the point where I've not seen enough progression and follow on to what I've been doing here. The main channels that I've pointed out that I used to follow, even though they know about this work, they don't seem to have, it doesn't seem to have changed what they're doing too much, right? I'm not going to get into why, I've pointed that out already, but we should have seen a more of a progression in, seeing a change in this stuff, and it's just not. So yes, I am going to be slowing down. I'm not going to stop altogether. I will just probably anyway, you get the picture. These images here, I suppose I'm answering a few questions, and there will be pointers to where, if I am going to make any videos in the near future, this will be the direction that I'm going in. The first image here is from Aswan Quarry, and it is a valid question that is put forward, because the first time I saw it, I asked myself the same thing, and I showed you how these were fingerprints. Not these, what you're seeing here actually is different. These lines here aren't the same as the fingerprints that I showed you. The giant fingerprints. All these are here. I showed you huge tire prints, didn't I, from something like a monster truck, which is on the next image. So if you can imagine that a tire went around here and left these prints in here, and then it went round here again over this lip, right? And all these lines are here is just where the clay, because this was really soft, like I showed you, and it's just ran down the sides. Okay, do you get that? So it's created these tire prints here, and where it's been pushed up, it's just ran down the sides and then hardened. Alright, and that's a fact. The next image is a slightly different, it's the same artifact, the same area, it's just like that's the tire print I showed you. I'm not getting into these again, but I didn't show you this because I showed you how this area had been pushed up by something like these, and that's why you get it, why it angles there. It's tire prints, and I showed you, and I told you that the side wallings of it, of tire prints of something like a tractor. So I've put this in to show you how they angle around. Now obviously most of you got that straight away, but there were some people that didn't. So that's how they angle around, and you got your square, and that's why it's like that, right? But yet, even though somebody pointed this out, and this actually doesn't make sense, right? And the only explanation why these lines seem to be because this can't be the same as what I've just pointed you out. These are not fingerprints, and they can't be tire prints either, right? So there's still questions that are unanswered to this site. I can't answer everything, but I've showed enough evidence to show you that some of them were in fact tire prints and fingerprints, but yet we've got areas like this. Now these lines here, if it was something like I showed you, like a tire had driven over here and pushed it up and then dribbled down, why do these lines run into these here? Right? They wouldn't run all the way around here, would they? So this is something else. It's just strange, and the only way that I could explain it is, you know, the vehicle may have fallen down here and created these marks, but even then it still doesn't add up, does it? I mentioned how it might have reversed out here and come out sideways, but it's just unexplainable. It even looks like, you see that lip there with a little hole, it even looks like, and you get these holes here, like it had some type of metal framing around it, even there. So that might be something I might get into later. This is Tanis. I was showing you the 2 videos I made on Egyptian statues, actually some of the best work that I've ever made, along with the videos on the dolmen structures, because everything that we're looking at is in fact petrified or saturated wood. And by the way, what I mean by saturated wood is, as this wood got buried in silt and mud during the Great Flood, it soaked up enough lime and silt, right, that as the wood rotted away, or even just soaked it up, as it dried out and came to the surface, it turned into mud rock. Yeah, saturated and then petrified wood. What this is slightly different to the wooden statues that I was showing you, because when you look in here, that is exactly the same as this. It's just sand and corroded concrete, but I mean, why the pictures are so perfect is something else that's unexplainable, that will be something else that I need to delve into further. This just looks like compressed sand to me, right? Well, obviously they weren't building pillars to hold up roofs out of compressed sand. So this has either just been done by pressure from the Great Flood, or been buried. You know, these were made out of wood or something, and they got buried in enough sand, and there was enough like pressure that it all got pressed into the shape as everything else rotted away. That's the only way that I can explain it, people, because they weren't building pillars from compressed sand, were they? But when you look in there, that is indeed what it is. This is a site in Rome, and you can see that these are wooden lats, no different to what you would build your garden fence out of. You can see it. This is wood, it's just got some plaster over it. The round thing that goes on top will be metal, and there will be metal beaming inside, like a rebar maybe, or you know, like a metal framing, and that, as water ran through the top of it, it rusted it away, and it rusted through this. You see this on both sides, okay? Because again, I've told you that nothing is rock cut. This is a site, it's actually St. Petersburg, and this is a workshop where they're working on wood. These are wooden, the tops of the pillars that are outside some of the greatest museums and sites in St. Petersburg, and they smother the false granite stuff that I've showed you on the Egyptian statues and other sites, you know, where it looks like granite, kind of compressed sand. It's got bits all over it, right? Anyway, they make them out of wood and then they smother it over it. Now, I came up with an idea just an hour ago. I thought that, well, maybe it's something like enamel. It's like a clear enamel that they add sand to and colouring, say, right, and then layer it over, and then it hardens, obviously, so it's like enamel that's got sand in it, all right? And they're doing it now, you know, because we've got sites like this. This stone doesn't exist, does it? This black stone all the way through with no grain. I think it's enamel that's just got sand in it and sometimes colouring, but this is a site in Egypt, and these will have been made out of wood, and you can see that, and maybe even concrete, right? And then they wrap some wood around it, so you can see it there. This is separate to this here, isn't it? But they call this a rock carved structure because around it it's like a, you know, like a mountain, and they're saying that they've gone in here and carved some living quarters out, but it was built, it's just been covered up, you know, covered over by the flood, and it's just encased in a huge pile of mud that's turned mud rock. It's structural, you can see it, part of that wall has fallen away. This will run all the way around, you can see it there, right? No different to how you build a house today. That, you know, so you build the walls, and then you build the, you know, well, you lay the floor, the walls, then you put the roof in, right, and decorate it. I will get into a video soon enough about, again, about Egyptian artwork and who's done it and when, and I will get into that later. I think this is the same area, but this is another example of why I know I'm right. Well, I know I'm right. You see this flooring, right? They didn't make this so perfect and then leave the floor a complete mess, did they? As all this concrete eroded away, it created a hard surface on the floor. Can you see that? And this floor is made out of the same material as the wall. So that floor explains and confirms everything that I'm talking about. This site here is in Egypt, and I'm going to try and point out to you that this again was some type of huge, almost looks like some type of mansion, I suppose, huge mansion that will have been constructed because obviously you wouldn't, you know, because it's known as a rock cut structure like anything else, but you wouldn't be going to this site, would you, this area, and trying to carve something, or machine carve something like this, a living quarters, out of this type of material, would you, with all these holes, yeah, and break points in for it just to collapse and crack? No, you wouldn't. It's because it's turned into what you see now. It's an imprint. Okay. What this was, I'm not sure. I think it could have been something like part of the chimney, or that's just collapsed through. But as it did collapse, everything that was in the centre got forced to the outside. And how I know that is, this looks like definitely it was some type of balcony. Yeah, with balconies, you know, beams no different to how we make them today. It's on that side as well, and you've got these statues that stupidly have, you know, look like that they're actually connected to the backs of these things. Well, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't make a balcony and have these huge statues right in your way so you can't look over it, would you? So as this thing fell down, it forced all this to the outside. And that's why it's blocked off. You can't walk behind it. Site, this picture here, this site is absolutely unbelievable and explains everything that I'm talking about. One of those paradigms was, you know, that I have difficulty with is pointing, figuring out which is sandstone and limestone that has hardened into sandstone and limestone from concrete that has gone underwater during the flood, in the ways I've shown you. But this just again looks like mud rock. It's an imprint of what this thing was built from, and it was built right. This front here, well, look inside it. This indeed used to be a doorway, right? But to get inside here you would have to knock all that rock out, and that rock inside there is made from the same material as the outside. Yeah, it's mud rock. This is it's forced its way in during the flood and hardened into what you see. You can see what it was built from. Can you see the lines? This again looks like some type of balcony where at one time you will be able to stand and walk around inside this building. You need to go to my Google page and inspect that image and figure it out for yourself. I've given you a pointer. It's obvious. This, well, again, I mean, you wouldn't be going to this area, would you, and trying to carve this stuff out. Look at the state of it. It's just an imprint of what this thing was built from. You can see the imprint of beams. You know, whether or not this was concrete that's turned to sand or limestone, or if it's mud rock, I don't quite know. This is an unbelievable image, and it's massive. You can literally zoom right in on areas like that if you go to my Google page. But again, they call it rock cut, but you can see in here this area will have been metal beaming, you know, like hollow iron or steel beams, square, hollow, like we make them today, and they bend round at the top, and then you can rest floorings on it, and it's there. And that's why you've got holes, pleats that run down. But just look at what it's turned into. It's a spectacular image, is that. This was in the last video, and I named that video concrete, something like concrete turned to sand and limestone. And actually most of that video, that title was actually correct, but when I watched it afterwards, straight away I figured this site can't be. What you're looking at here must, and I know some people get sick of me saying that, you know, this is wood and that's wood, but that's what it was, because you wouldn't be able to build a door out of concrete with all these fancy little pieces in. These were put in separately. Well, you know, how are you going to join little pieces of concrete to each other and have them secure? You can't. It's just, again, saturated wood that has been saturated in silt, and it's just turned into, it's silt. And how I know I'm right, it's this image actually which put me onto this. Can you see what this looks like? If you've ever seen silt, you know, walked across a beach or a lake, when it's dried out, it looks exactly the same as that, right? This here, if anybody lives in England and you've been to any old churches, right, you've seen areas like this. It's broken off there. It will have been like a spiral, like what's on the end of a balcony, yeah? You know, when you come down the stairs and you hold onto the balcony and it spirals around, that's what that was. This actually joined onto that there, and it's been forced back somehow. That was made out of wood. They make these out of wood in the exact same way, the exact same pattern today. And you have to do, because when these get damaged, you've got to be able to take them out and replace them. But it's broken there, and when you look inside, it just looks like dried silt. It's mud rock that used to be wood. This image explains everything that I'm talking about during this video. I just threw that in there for you. That's actually Tutankhamun's tomb, so-called. I've made a video on it. It's just more verification on what I was saying in that video, that it's just a house. There's an entire city, isn't there, across Egypt, and they're just houses. Whatever they call a tomb were just houses that are buried, or, you know, that are just being buried, and they're now underground, and images like this prove it, okay? Again, mud rock. Can you see how that's hardened over? Anyway, go inspect these images. I'm just repeating myself. this thing here, I might get into a video. This has been knocking around the megalithic community now for a long time. This site, I don't even know where it is. Some people will know where it is, and I've shown it a few times. And it's actually, can you see these holes here? And they're perfectly spaced, and they are. And they run all the way around this thing. Why are these holes here like this and there? They're perfectly spaced. I'd never noticed this before. Where is the water coming from to feed this? Because this is antediluvian, or you know, it's ancient. What is this thing? Yeah, I mean, is this some sort of dry dock? I mean, is this some sort of ship? Is this petrified wood? What you're looking at here? And this is where the water would leak out, you know, when the decks get full of water and they spill out. These holes need explaining. That's from the video that I named Hunter-Gatherers to Modern Day Farming, because these were in fact hay bales, the round ones, what we make today, that are just being saturated in silt. And because it's this thing, I've actually got a bigger image of it, because everybody that looks at this, right, that's into, you know, megalithics, both sides of the fence will say that this is the, you know, that they've been carving blocks in this way, and it's explanations and images like this that are damning, you know, to this research, because who in their right mind would go to an area like this and actually carve out of the ground huge blocks like this that's literally made out of lime? You would make it out of concrete. You would just grind this stuff up and make it yourself. You wouldn't go, you know, carve these things out stupid like that and then carry them away. You would make them there, right? What it is, I'm not sure. It's obviously some type of imprint. This is just mud rock. Something fell on here and rotted away and left its imprint. That's all it is.